Africa brings in more than 40 million tons of steel every single year. That metal becomes the skeleton of its expanding cities, the spine of its new railways, the framework of its bridges, and the foundation of its modern ports. Yet beneath that steady stream of imports lies a contradiction that has puzzled economists, policymakers, and engineers for generations. The raw ingredients required to forge that very steel are already sitting beneath African soil. Vast iron ore reserves span multiple nations, from the mineral-rich belts of Zimbabwe and South Africa to the untapped deposits of Nigeria and Guinea. The demand is undeniable. The resources are abundant. But for decades, the transformation has happened elsewhere. This has created a cycle that is notoriously difficult to escape. African nations export raw ore at relatively low commodity prices, only to watch those same materials return as finished steel products, marked up by processing costs, international shipping, and global market premiums. The continent pays a premium to use its own resources. But recently, that long-standing pattern has begun to fracture. In the central highlands of Zimbabwe, near the town of Manhais, a sprawling industrial complex is rising from the earth. It is known as the Dinsen Iron and Steel Project. Backed by China's Qing Shan holding group, one of the world's largest steel producers, this facility is not designed to be just another factory on the periphery of global trade. It is being engineered as a fully integrated steel-making ecosystem. The vision is straightforward but ambitious. Extract iron ore directly from local mines, process it on-site, and output finished construction-ready steel without relying on fragmented supply chains or distant refineries. The scale alone demands attention. Once all phases are complete, the project is projected to produce up to 5 million tons of steel annually. To grasp what that means, consider that 5 million tons exceeds the combined yearly output of several African nations that currently operate smaller or partially integrated mills. The initial investment for the first stages is estimated between $1.5 and $2 billion, with additional capital earmarked for future expansions. But the true significance of this venture lies not in its price tag or its tonnage. It lies in its architecture. Steel remains the indispensable material of modern development. Skyscrapers cannot rise without reinforced steel frameworks. Freight and passenger railways depend on hardened locomotives. Steel tracks engineered to withstand decades of heavy loads. Suspension bridges rely on high-tensile steel cables and girders to span rivers and valleys. Even the energy sector, from thermal power stations to high-voltage transmission towers, is anchored in steel. When you examine global production figures, one nation stands apart. China manufactures well over half of the world's steel, with annual output consistently surpassing 1 billion tons. That volume dwarfs the combined production of the next several largest producers. This dominance allows China to fuel its own relentless urban expansion, while simultaneously supplying construction booms across Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Africa, by contrast, accounts for only a small fraction of global steel output, despite holding some of the planet's most substantial iron ore reserves. Rather than refining these deposits domestically, many countries have historically shipped raw ore overseas and purchased finished steel from international markets. Meanwhile, continental demand continues to climb. Demographic growth, urbanization, and government-led infrastructure initiatives are pushing consumption higher. Projections suggest Africa's annual steel demand could surpass 70 million tons by the early 2030s. The consequences of this imbalance are tangible and far-reaching. Imported steel carries the weight of freight charges, port fees, and currency exchange volatility. When global prices spike, construction budgets across the continent swell overnight. Infrastructure projects that were carefully planned suddenly face delays, cost overruns, or outright cancellations because material expenses outpace funding. The bottleneck is rarely a lack of ambition. It is a lack of integrated industrial capacity. Building that capacity requires solving systemic challenges that have historically held African manufacturing back. Energy is perhaps the most critical. A modern integrated steel plant can draw as much power as a mid-sized metropolitan area. Blast furnaces and continuous casting lines must operate around the clock. Even brief power interruptions can trigger costly shutdowns, damage equipment, and disrupt production schedules. In many regions, electricity grids remain constrained by aging infrastructure, inconsistent generation, and rising demand from households and businesses alike. Transportation presents another formidable hurdle. Iron ore must travel from extraction sites to processing facilities, while finished steel must reach distribution hubs and construction sites.
Construction zones. Without reliable rail networks, well-maintained highways, and efficient port logistics, moving heavy materials becomes prohibitively expensive. In certain corridors, it has historically been more cost-effective to export raw ore and import finished steel than to attempt local processing. Then there is the capital requirement. Integrated steel mills demand blast furnaces, coke ovens, sintering plants, oxygen converters, and rolling mills. Each component requires specialized engineering, rigorous safety protocols, and billions in upfront financing. Securing that funding, alongside the technical expertise to operate and maintain such facilities, has long been a barrier to entry. This is precisely the gap the Dinsen project aims to close. At Manhise, the facility is being constructed as a vertically integrated operation. The workflow begins with local iron ore mining, which feeds directly into on-site beneficiation and processing units. The refined material then enters blast furnaces, where temperatures exceed 1,500 degrees Celsius to produce molten iron. That iron is transferred to steam-making converters, refined for carbon content and impurities, and poured into continuous casting machines. Finally, the solidified slabs pass through rolling mills to emerge as rebar, structural beams, sheet metal, and other construction-grade products. The entire sequence unfolds within a single industrial footprint. This integrated layout slashes transportation costs, minimizes handling delays, and maximizes thermal and operational efficiency. Instead of relying on scattered facilities across multiple regions, the production chain operates as one coordinated system. The physical footprint reflects this philosophy. The complex spans thousands of hectares and includes not only production lines, but also warehousing, maintenance workshops, administrative centers, worker housing, and utility infrastructure. Thousands of laborers, engineers, and contractors have contributed to its construction. Once fully operational, the plant will sustain thousands of direct positions, alongside countless indirect roles in logistics, equipment servicing, catering, and local commerce. Development has followed a phased approach. Early stages focused on site grading, utility routing, and foundational structures. Heavy machinery, including furnace assemblies and rolling equipment, arrived in subsequent waves. By 2024 and into 2025, initial commissioning and trial production began, with output expected to scale steadily as additional modules come online through 2026 and beyond.
Yet the involvement of a Chinese industrial giant naturally raises questions. Why is a foreign company spearheading this transformation? China's domestic steel sector has matured to a point where capacity now outpaces domestic demand. Rather than idle assets or engage in destructive price wars at home, major producers are expanding overseas. Establishing plants in emerging markets allows them to access growing demand while diversifying their geographic footprint. Africa's construction trajectory aligns perfectly with that strategy. Urban expansion, industrial zone development, and continental infrastructure corridors are creating sustained long-term demand for structural materials. By producing locally, Chinese firms position themselves closer to end users, reducing shipping distances and currency risks. There is also a clear economic logic. Labor, land, and certain operational costs in parts of Africa remain lower than in traditional manufacturing hubs. When paired with direct access to raw materials, that cost structure can yield competitive pricing against imported steel. Over time, localized production can stabilize supply chains and insulate regional markets from global volatility.
But this initiative extends beyond pure economics. It reflects a broader evolution in overseas investment. For years, Chinese financing and engineering have shaped Africa's transport and energy landscapes, funding railways, highways, ports, and power stations. Steel production represents a logical next step. Instead of merely constructing infrastructure, The focus shifts toward manufacturing the foundational materials that make infrastructure possible. This deepens economic integration and creates mutual dependencies that span decades. If the pieces align, the ripple effects could transform entire sectors. Today, many African nations tie their construction costs to international benchmarks, leaving them exposed to freight bottlenecks and exchange rate swings. Domestic production rewires that dynamic. A facility capable of supplying millions of tons annually introduces price predictability, shorter lead times, and greater supply security. When steel becomes more accessible and affordable, housing projects accelerate, road networks expand, and industrial parks become financially viable. Development multiplies across sectors simultaneously.
The employment impact is equally significant. Beyond direct plant operations, downstream industries begin to take root. Automotive assembly, metal fabrication, machinery manufacturing, and construction material production all benefit from reliable, nearby steel supplies. That accessibility can attract foreign direct investment, encourage local entrepreneurship, and gradually diversify economies that have long relied on commodity exports. Yet this transition is not guaranteed. Success depends on consistent output, functional logistics networks, competitive pricing, and sustained maintenance standards. Large-scale industrial ventures also carry inherent trade-offs. One primary concern revolves around economic dependency. When a project of this magnitude is financed, engineered, and managed with substantial foreign backing, it forges a long-term partnership that brings capital and technical know-how, but also raises questions about local control. Decisions regarding production quotas, pricing strategies, technology transfer, and future expansions may not rest entirely with host governments or domestic stakeholders. If operational expertise and financial leverage remain concentrated abroad, the host economy could find itself reliant on external partners for a critical industrial input. Environmental considerations are equally pressing. Traditional steelmaking is energy-intensive and generates significant carbon emissions, particulate matter, and wastewater. Modern regulations and global climate commitments demand cleaner production methods, carbon capture integration, and sustainable resource management. How the plant navigates environmental compliance, waste recycling, and emissions control will shape its long-term viability and public acceptance. These tensions are not unique to Africa. They mirror challenges faced by every nation that has pursued rapid industrialization. The real question is whether this project represents an isolated venture or the beginning of a continental shift. For decades, Africa has functioned primarily as a raw material exporter. Initiatives like Dinsen aim to relocate value addition closer to the source, retaining more economic benefits within regional markets. Other industrializing nations followed similar trajectories, building manufacturing capacity in tandem with infrastructure expansion. Steel served as the backbone of that transformation, enabling urbanization, job creation, and economic resilience. Africa's context differs in governance, scale, and global timing, but the underlying principle remains consistent. Industrial capacity enables infrastructure. Infrastructure enables growth. If similar projects emerge across multiple countries, they could eventually interlock into a regional industrial network. Shared power grids, upgraded rail corridors, and coordinated trade policies under frameworks like the African Continental Free Trade Area could amplify these efforts. Steel plants, processing hubs, and manufacturing zones might form a connected ecosystem that supports broader economic development. But realization depends on execution. It hinges on whether production targets are met, whether transport and energy infrastructure keep pace, whether technology transfer genuinely builds local capacity, and whether environmental safeguards are rigorously enforced. This is not about a single facility or a single nation. It is about testing a model that could redefine how industrial value is created across the continent.